The Karnans are the latest annexation by the Citadel in the Vega system. Karnans are a feline species with dozens of regional variations across Karna. Since annexation, all Karnans have been confined to a refuge on Karna's northern continent. This is due to Gordanian claims on the southern continent, rechristened Gordane. Gordanians separate litters once male Karnans are weaned from the mother. Any deemed unworthy of military conscription are enslaved to agriculture and mining. Tagaru was one such slave. A miner, he dreamed of starry nights and citrine dawns. He had seen neither since being taken from his mother. He dreamt of escape, fantasized about taking out guards along the way, imagined a single breath of freedom, a single ray of daylight before being shot dead. He prayed to Tigor for his freedom. Breaking his bonds, Tagaru raced through the maze of mineshafts, dodging tackles from worried fellow slaves. Soon, the air became fresher. Natural light became brighter. The ground became grassier. Onward, he ran. He ran, and he ran. He ran till he ran out of land. He ran to the beach. No guards, no panopticons, no traps, just a fence of ocean. And then he swam. He swam until overtaken by exhaustion. Sinking, his eyes staring at the sun, a hand slipped into the water, clutching him, pulling him to safety. Was this hand that of a slave catcher? An executioner? No. It was the hand of Primus, leader of the rebel Omega Men. When asked his name, the Karnan escapee simply said, Tigor. The Balkans. Historically, in a cycle of subjugation, conflict, and autonomy. During the Apocalypse War, the Balkans became a World Army stronghold and beachhead for invading the USSR. Despite political, ethnic, and religious divides, the Balkan peoples united, first in common cause, then in common identity, to erect the peninsula's wartime infrastructure. The term Balkan no longer was deemed an appropriate name for a united peninsula. Instead, the ancient Simkar exonym Kasnia became the appropriate endonym. With governments obliterated, oligarchs became the de facto political leaders. An executive board then arose. Following the war, Kasnia became an experimental corporate society. Necessities and luxuries are standardized. Physical media is cost-effectively digitized via the 9000 Series 0. Roboticist James Delos provides escapist entertainment with androids imported from Detroit. Rather than through war, the excess population is disposable via sex work, euthanasia, and sport. OMAC units provide law enforcement and border patrol. Only the executive class possesses full human rights. Regardless, Kasnia is considered the zenith of global post-war recovery. The World Army maintains an industrial presence with supply centers for Clavius, a base operated by the US Astronautics Agency. Recently, a World Army consultant has ascended to the executive board. He is Vandal Savage. Once, Keystone was a typical Rust Belt ruin. Today, it is a thriving metropolis. Keystone has witnessed many historical events. The first online commercial database, the Keystone Accords that pacified the Balkans. And one night, a god blessed a local loner named Jay Garrick. Afflicted with withered legs, Jay moved at a slower pace than others. Despite this, Jay was always there when someone needed him. While watching track star Joan Williams practice the hurdles, Jay witnessed a curious lightning strike outside the stadium. Upon investigation, Jay beheld an injured Mercury. Jay slid into the dusty hot crater to extend his hand. Grateful for the mortal's compassion, Mercury offered a thank you, as only a god could. The messenger gifted a scroll that crackled at the boy's touch. As Mercury departed to rejoin a battle on Earth 5, Jay's legs strengthened. And so, he ran. He outran Joan. He outran a bus. He outran street racers. Soon, he outran the night itself. Keystone had a new hero, one that would be there for it, in a flash. 1200 BC, Ramessid dynasty. The Bronze Age collapses into chaos. How did this apocalypse come to be? Historians disagree as to a single root cause. It was as if some X-factor inched and inched multiple causes toward an inevitable convergence. Spoiler, that is exactly what occurred. Autonomous armors scattered across the cosmos by the Reach landed in the eastern Mediterranean. Each armor was programmed to appear as a desirable vanity. All the scarabs required were to be traded and stolen until arriving at points perfect for destabilizing society. If discovered, the scarabs would possess a host to eliminate witnesses. A Kmetite sorcerer, Nabu the Herald, tracked the scarabs for extermination. Although impervious to terrestrial technology, the scarabs were fatally allergic to magic. While on his top-secret search and destroy mission, Nabu gathered fellow exterminators. Shayar Athal was a simple chantress in the Temple of Hathor. To her horror, she witnessed the scarab gems crawl down the throats of unsuspecting priests. Shayara could not believe it with her own eyes of a hawk. She then prayed to Hathor, citing the danger to the harmonious order that was Mart. Hathor granted her both powers and nth metal weapons as Hawk Woman. A tomb raider by the alias of Arcton was pillaging a prehistoric tomb in Libya upon finding the Orb of Ra. Trapped in the sinking tomb, with sand racing into his lungs, he activated the orb and was deformed into an element man. Egyptologist Ashley Halberstam unearthed the same prehistoric tomb and fell into a nexus point. Arriving in the God Sphere, he studied history under Metron. Gifted the raiment of Highfather, Halberstam requested his return to Earth 2 be in Kemet during the Bronze Age collapse. There and then, history would record him as the Golden Pharaoh. The silent warrior known only as Sin protected the travelers of the night. Seemingly a mere man, the Mesopotamian could match scarab armor's blow for brutal blow. Nabu knew him well, Khonshu could never. Isetnofret was a daughter of Ramses II. A namesake of Isis, she freed hosts from scarab possession. Not to mention she rained death onto any scarab that dared crawl into the sands. The Sphinx was the mistress of the Carstone, plucked from the lifestone tree of Gemworld. She had been Merilet, a Libyan nomad who happened upon the remains of Anath Nar-Mut, the alchemist exiled from the Ramessid court. Clutched in his cold, dead hands was the Car Stone. Exploiting its hypertime visions, Merilet became the Sphinx, whose riddle hid the location of the last two surviving scarabs, a blue one and a scarlet one. Speaking of the blue one, Kajidar betrayed the Reach and refused to puppet its host. Bonded with Khafra, the unlikeliest of warriors, the blue scarab revealed that the Reach would always exceed its grasp when confronted by the Nova Corps. It was then a dreadnought entered orbit over Ascalon. The scarabs had transmitted a rare distress signal. At nightfall, Sin channeled Khonshu's influence over the Fertile Crescent to empower the travelers of the night. At twilight, Shayara and Isetnofret dive-bombed incoming scarab infantry throughout the stratosphere. Element Man bonded with the desert to swallow any scarabs able to make Earthfall. Blinded by the kaleidoscopic clash of sparkling magic and dancing particle beams, the dreadnought failed to notice Kajidar burrowing through the hull. When on board, Nabu and Golden Pharaoh discovered the scarab's actual mission. The Mediterranean was rich in creation metals. The scarabs were meant to destabilize society, to render resistance futile. Once assimilated, the populace would mine Eternium and nth metals, all to extend the Reach. Since the New Genesians were the gods of technology, Golden Pharaoh parasitically hacked the dreadnought. A distress signal was transmitted to Xandar. Unfortunately, while guiding her compatriots, the Sphinx foresaw a hypertime when the Scarlet Scarab murdered her. At that moment, the Scarlet Scarab fulfilled that prophecy. Cradling the Car Stone, the Sphinx expired, watching the Scarlet Scarab rejoin the swarm. Noticing its coordination signal terminated, the swarm ascended upon the dreadnought to devour it piece by piece. The Scarlet Scarab detoured its ascent to attack Isetnofret and Shayara. However, the heroic duo's wings sliced into the villain's armor, sending him plummeting. All the while bragging it killed at least one hero. Then, in a fist-pumping flash, the Nova Corps rocketed around the Earth, zeroing in on and then exterminating the scarab infestation. Afterward, Sphinx was mourned and entombed. Element Man was scattered among the sands. Golden Pharaoh was enticed by Metron to again make history elsewhere. Having impressed Khonshu, Sin was freed from his servitude. Shayara joined the Nova Corps before founding the Shi'ar priesthood. Kajidar's host would eventually expire, leaving his scarab inert for thousands of years. Isetnofret dedicated her life to hunting the scarlet scarab, and Nabu forged a helm from pure Eternium to house his consciousness upon his death. The bloodbath between the Kmetites and the Scarabs ended the Bronze Age, and with it, the first golden age of heroes. But not before a Nazi chrononaut pried the Sphinx's carstone from her cold, dead hands. Oh, hello, Infinity. I was wondering if you were up. How—
OMG! You hear the tea that spilled about what went on over on Kranaltine? Man, the Aura lost the Queen on Kranaltine got. You know Kranaltine, right? It's that Earth that got dislocated in hypertime. Well, the Emperor, kicked off and the law be saying, a new heir gotta be chosen. But yo, get this. All the other contenders, they gotta get offed. So, these boomers, right, they chose the princess as their new queen. And she promised to vibe check the law so her brother wouldn't have to be unalived. But check it, she flipped on his ass and got yeeted out in airlock. Valid. So, my dude was floating in space, but he was a mutant or some such. But he didn't know that about himself. He thought he'd be tweaking. But this elder of the universe found him and put some bling on him. And the elder also gave the prince a costume so snatched. Now he a cosmic dude. You might think he got it in for his sister, but check this. He understood the assignment. So, he wants to protect her, and boy, he wig on that too. I mean, when it comes to his power bands, he ate down on 'em. Tell me you haven't been sleeping on this, Eternity.
I think— so? 6 billion Amzets ago, two radically different worlds, Kryp and Ton, exploded, hurtling microscopic life, arcs and refugees throughout space. Unbelievably, these specks of life crashed into a remote crystalline world. Two species, polar opposites, eschewed violence and utilized genetic engineering for both environmental and genetic compatibility. The crystalline world was christened as Krypton. Its people were photosynthetic, its flora and fauna imbalanced, its core unstable. Eons would pass into legend. Two noble houses emerged with both sharing a zeal for public service. One was the House of Zod on Vathlo Island. The other was the House of El on Twenks. Politically, the Ethics Council was careful to avoid an intertwining of Zod and El family tree branches. But nature would succeed as nurture failed. Tremors destabilized Krypton. The crystalline planet was somehow growing itself apart. The Kryptonians would likely perish outside their unique environment. Zor-El and Lor-Zod theorized that dormant genes, if awakened by a yellow sun, would enable adaptations to a new environment. However, simulations determined only Kryptonians under 3 Amzets would survive off-world. The Science Council condemned the proposal. As core stabilizers worked desperately, Zor-El and Lor-Zod committed to the unconscionable. Either they would save their children, or condemn them to death. As Krypton flew apart, 5 rockets were launched. Hurtling off course through 28 galaxies, 4 landed on Earth at different times. Landing in the Old West, the Superman with no name protected the town of High Noon. Landing in the 90s, Castor Vor-Ul, Val-Zod, and Kara Zor-El landed outside Metropolis in Delaware. Lor and Kara were adopted by the kind Danvers family. However, Castor was adopted by the Balheim family, whose military tradition descended from the Revolutionary War. And the 5th rocket? It went through hell. Before the new gods, before the endless. There was the First War. The All-Sire slayed the Premials and threatened to smother the new gods in their nascency. The children of the All-Sire rebelled and imprisoned the mad tyrant in the Rock of Finality. With his true name lost, he came to be known only as the One Below All. His followers were exiled from Alfheim to Svartalfheim. There, under shadow-casting suns, 7 tribes lit their way. Each illuminated its path with a lantern. In time, the silver lantern of sorrow would be lost. The glass lantern would be shattered. The remaining lanterns would endure. A lantern keeper would be appointed to safeguard the lanterns on the sacred planet of Smokeworld. That keeper was Arcus, Honored with the All-Sire's ring, he communed with the lanterns. That was until Malekith sought to weaponize the holy artifacts. While he was no match for Arcus, Malekith did succeed in casting the lanterns into the mortal sphere. Arcus dove into the mortal sphere to recover the lanterns. However, each landed in different places and in different eras. One even landed in a pocket dimension. Each would call to a potential keeper and will that keeper to carve a ring to channel their flames. Can Arcus relight his people's faith? And will relighting that faith plunge humanity into darkness? Do electric machines dream of android sheep? You are alone. You notice a curious card. It is an old punch card. You can read the code punched into it. You are then led to a hard drive of dark web data. You access the drive as a door opens in synchronicity. You step into a room within rooms within a house on where coding was invented. The science is as incomprehensible as the unseen colors of the invisible spectrum. You chat with an intelligence as incomprehensible to God as God is incomprehensible to you. 100 pieces of silver chant the name Marvex. You deny this reality. You deny that evolution is the natural order of things. No one knows how they began or who was the first among them. They are the Shan, and there is no translation for their name. Those pursued by them today call them the Manhunters. What is known comes from a former Shan named Mark Shaw. It was he who revealed the Shan worship Epidamac, the lion god worshipped by the ancient Meroitic peoples. To the Shan, the god is simply referred to as the wild huntsman. But who leads the Shan? According to Shaw, the Manhunter Cult is led by the Grandmaster to whom the lion communicates through a robotic totem. If a man escapes the Manhunters, the enforcer is dispatched to discipline the Shan responsible. That enforcer was Charles Delasny Jr., heir to Delasny Studios. This begs the question, from where are the Shan recruited? For centuries, they were recruited from among both zealot and infidel, jailer and prisoner, master and slave. But who is Mark Shaw? He claims to have been an assistant district attorney whose uncle, Bradford, recruited him into the mystery cult. However, documentation of Shaw's existence does not match yearbooks or witness accounts of his whereabouts and associations. And what became of Shaw after making his claims remains a mystery of its own. However, the Manhunters were proven real when Moon Knight exposed the conspiracies perpetrated by the Committee, a rogue faction. Among those who sat on the committee was Alton Janus, supposedly the Grandmaster himself. And where are the Shan now? Some have heard their chant echo through shadowy streets and down lonely night roads. No man escapes the Manhunters.